writing to myself, Sandra Stothert, the Planning Coordinator, Secretary Treasurer. You may send me an email, or you may drop a letter into the drop box at the Township office. The drop box is on the left-hand side of the front door. I believe that's what I needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. The agenda has been circulated. I should like to entertain a motion for confirmation of the agenda, please. Moved by Larry, seconded by Pat. All those in favor with a show of hands, please. Carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? I see none. That shall be recorded. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the previous minutes meeting of January 12th, 2021. These minutes have been circulated. Is there any business arising from the minutes?
I have no business arising.
Thank you. New business.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, have the minutes been approved?
Oh, forgive me. Got a motion to approve the minutes? Been moved by Larry, second by Mark. All those in favor? Carried. New business. We have no minor variances today. We have one consent application, and that consent application is for a lot line addition. The applicant is Scott and Lois Milson at 3031 Stu Black Road. Sandra, could I turn this back to you, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's the opinion of this department that the proposal is in keeping with the intent of the Township Official Plan and would be appropriate development. The subject property, as you said, is 3031 Stu Black Road, being part of Lot 26, Concession 3. Notice of public meeting was circulated to the public on January 19, 2021, and the signs were posted on the property on January 21, 2021, in accordance with the regulations of the Planning Act. The application is seeking consent to sever 2.03 hectares, just over 5 acres, as a lot addition to the property immediately north at 7861 Bickle Hill Road. The retained parcel will continue to enjoy over 38 acres of land and 351 feet of frontage on Stu Black Road. The property is within the rural designation. The existing land use of the subject property, the parent property, there is a single detached dwelling and various outbuildings. A large portion of the lot is moderately tree covered. The land has significant slopes within. There is another active consent application on the parent property. Application B0720 for a new lot creation was granted provisional consent, but this decision has been appealed to the local planning appeal tribunal. Surrounding land uses are residential and farming in various locations surrounding. Provincial policy statement. The proposal does appear to be in keeping with the provincial policy statement, as this is for lot addition. It is not for new lot creation. With respect to the township official plan, the property is designated rural. There are deposits of high mineral aggregates in the area, and the lands are part of a large wooded area within the township, identified in the natural heritage section of the official plan. Benefiting lands are already developed for residential use. There's no additional development anticipated through this application. Therefore, major impacts to the woodlot are not anticipated, nor major impacts to the wildlife habitats. Benefiting receiving lands, again, are already developed, and no impacts to the environmental status of the area. With respect to the mineral aggregates, there are a number of other residential uses in the immediate area of the aggregate resources, and the proposed lot addition would not create an additional impact to the resources. With respect to general development policies, Section 11 of the official plan, the size, shape, and proposed resultant lot appears to be appropriate for the marginal agricultural zone, which is what the benefiting lot is zoned. Minimum distance separation calculations are not required for lot addition, as new development is not to occur. and various conditions will be imposed as our practice with other permits. The rural designation does allow for residential consents, a maximum of 3 consents from the land as of the benchmark date of October 2003. 2 lots have been considered for consent since the benchmark date. Application B1213 was granted, creating the proposed benefiting parcel. And application B0720 for a new lot creation has received provisional consent, but has been appealed to the tribunal. This application is for lot addition and does not count in towards the new residential consent policies. The opinion of this department that the proposal is consistent with the township official plan. With respect to the zoning bylaw, bylaw 2001-58 is amended for the township. Parent lands are zoned marginal agricultural and environmentally sensitive area is identified surrounding the water course, which is on the parent property. The marginal ag zone requires 5 acres of land and 200 feet of road frontage as a minimum. The proposed severed parcel is designed to meet or exceed the marginal agricultural provisions. The lot addition, the proposed retained land has been illustrated to meet or exceed the provisions as well. Extrapolating from air photos available, the setbacks for the existing development appears to be fairly consistent with the dimensions submitted, but not exact. A surveyor's real property report is required. It's the opinion of this department that the proposal is in keeping with the marginal agricultural zone. Agency comments received. The Township of Public Works Roads Department has no objection. Township Building Department has no objection. The County of Northumberland has no objection. They do note that the application is for lot addition, and the proposed lot addition is currently vacant, and the benefiting and retained parcels are serviced by private on-site services. Hydro One Networks had no comments or concerns at the time. I do note that since authoring the report, I have received an email from the Conservation Authority. They note the subject property is located partially or entirely within their regulated area. A permit may be required from GRCA for any filling, grading, or construction works within this area. Subject lands are within a significant woodland due to the size of the woodland compartment. However, the application does not propose new development or new use. Furthermore, this application proposes a lot line adjustment rather than the creation of a new lot. On this basis, GRCA has no objection to the approval of the proposed consent application. I will ensure that the applicant receives a copy of that email. In conclusion, upon review of the application in relation to the provincial policy statement, the township official plan and zoning bylaw, and the comments received from the outside agencies, it's the opinion of this department that application B1920 would meet the intent of the planning document. Should the committee grant the proposed consent for lot addition, it's recommended the following conditions be imposed. The applicant submit reference plan as described, identifying the subject property being severed. The applicant submit a surveyor's real property report of the retained parent lot, illustrating the location of all buildings and structures. The applicant shall pursue the successful completion of Planning Act application, recognizing any zone provisions that do not meet the marginal agricultural zone as may be identified. Subject to an affidavit or letter of undertaking from a solicitor in good standing, stating that the severed land shall be registered in the same name and title as the benefiting lands. Subject to the consolidation of the PIN numbers. Subject to the execution of a severance agreement, and said agreement being registered on title of the severed benefiting parcel. Subject to the application of Section 50 sub 3 or 50 sub 5, as the case may be, of the Planning Act to any subsequent conveyances. And the applicant shall provide proof of payment of all taxes within 10 days of the stamping of the deed. And the applicant shall provide 3 hard copies of the new deed within 1 year of giving a written notice of decision. Stamping of the deed will conclude that all the above conditions have been fulfilled. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sandra. We will open this part of this meeting to the public. The applicant, Mr. Milson, is with us. We will come back to you, Mr. Milson, in a moment. If you have any questions or comments on the application. But to follow procedure, I'll ask, is there anyone other than the applicant with us in support of the application? I shall move on. Is there anyone present with us in opposition to the application? And is there anyone with us seeking clarification on the application? Hearing and seeing none, I will come back to the applicant, Mr. Milson, and ask, is there anything you would like to share with the committee?
Yes, just briefly. Everything I see in the report, I believe is accurate, and my neighbor that wants to purchase this land, he wished to be here, but couldn't get linked up. So he sends his regrets for that. My only request in this is in the conditions on page 7, recommendation number 2, the surveyor's real property report. The southern edge of this land that we're transferring is at least 1,500 feet from the nearest building on my property that's going to stay. So I'm asking for relief from this. Just, it seemed as unnecessary. There's no way that any of my buildings could have any bearing on this property. And so I'm just asking for relief from that second condition. Otherwise, everything in the report looks like exactly what we're asking for. And I appreciate that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments from committee members? Bill?
Just about the request, that can you actually sell this land without a real surveyor's report?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Please, Sandra.
the surveyor's real property report is in respect of the house on the existing parent property. If that house or any other building on the property does not meet setbacks as it sits today, that's fine. But the minute committee touches the property and grants consent, it is no longer the exact same property as it was a week ago. So we would need to, the township would need to recognize the location of any offending building with respect to the lot lines, because it's basically a new lot, although existing now. It's not the exact same lot. So we cannot create a lot that does not comply with the bylaw. The SRPR is required to determine the location of the buildings on the property and then determine whether or not a minor variance or zoning bylaw is required as we move further. The SRPR is not at all required, in my understanding of the law, for the conveyance of the property in and of itself. You can sell property with or without a survey. The SRPR that is being recommended to the committee, is to make sure that the resultant lot complies with the bylaw at the end of the day.
Sandra, could you just add clarity to SRPR?
Surveyor's real property report.
Thank you. Pat, please.
I would like a bit of clarification too. So Sandra, are you saying that it's not about how far the building is from the, where he's wanting the severance, but whether or not, say, the front of his house is too close to the road?
Exactly. Or any other building, to the road or any other lot line.
Okay, so if we removed that condition, then
Yes.
if there was a problem further down the line, it could fall back on us for not having got that done. Is that where the impact is?
Quite possibly, or when he goes to sell his retained portion of the property at some time in the future, someone's going to say, well, wait a minute, it doesn't meet the setback. It didn't meet the setback when you got your consent in 2021. Clean it up now before I buy your property. So at that point, he has to come forward for a variance or zoning, whichever is required. And we haven't properly done our job as municipal representatives to ensure that we didn't create a property that doesn't comply with the bylaw.
If I may, one more question, Mr. Chair.
Please.
So there's the potential for Mr. Milson to have the cost of the real property survey plus a minor variance if a side setback or some other setback was out of whack?
Correct. He needs the surveyor's real property report to determine whether or not anything is offending with respect to the zoning bylaw. If nothing is offending, then condition number 3 is not required. But if something is offending, then condition number 3 is there to make sure everything is done appropriately.
Could you read back condition number 3 for me, or could everyone throw it up on the screen?
Condition number 3, the applicant shall pursue the successful completion of a Planning Act application, recognizing any zone provisions that do not meet the requirements of the marginal agricultural zone, as may be identified on the above noted reference plan and surveyor's real property report.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Sandra, I have a question. Did I hear you correctly say that a surveyor's report or survey would or would not be required for the new lot line to transfer this property to the adjoining property owner?
My understanding of law, and I am not a solicitor, that you do not need a survey for the sale of land that is already specifically identified at the land registry office. But because Mr. Milson wishes to sever and sell a small portion of his land, that requires the reference plan to legally describe that piece of property, because it is certainly not legally described at the moment. And then we also need the surveyor's real property report telling us where the buildings are on Mr. Milson's property.
So whether we waive the condition that we've been asked to by the applicant or not, a surveyor will have to be on the property to establish the new lot description to allow it to be transferred to the new purchaser.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I remind the committee that when Mr. Milson was before the committee a couple of months ago with his new lot creation on Stu Black Road, one of the conditions was a surveyor's real property report. And that same information from that application can be used for this application. I'm not suggesting he have another one done, just I need the information for both applications as I move forward with them. So the same piece of paper will work, or as photocopy or whatever, will work for both applications. I just need the information to make sure that we are doing our jobs correctly.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from committee? Sandra, do you have anything further?
I do not know.
Okay, I'm seeing nothing further. Oh, Mr. Milson, you have something? We will go back to you, please.
Thank you. Sorry. Just so you know, I completely understand. I'm having a survey done of the land that's being transferred. That's automatic, has to be done. I get that. My my struggle is having to do this other one when I'm at the opposite end of the property. So you can see my houses from the air, they're on the map. They're 1,500 feet away. The other application, Sandra's absolutely right. I will have to do it. That makes more sense because it's close to the lot. The thing is, I don't know if I have to do that yet until we get through this appeal process. So that's going to happen down the road for the other lot if it goes through. I just don't see why for this one it would be necessary. I'm going to have a survey for the new land, but my buildings are so far away, I can't see how there's possibly a difference. And it's not like I can move them anyway. So that's all.
Any
Chairman?
other questions or comments from committee members? Is there anyone wishing to make a motion?
I'm not sure why everybody's being so shy. I'll move to accept.
Larry, you're on mute. I believe you were attempting to second the motion.
That is correct.
And gentlemen, you're leaving the conditions in the
As standing.
report as is?
Yes, hopefully that the one report will do both lots.
Okay, it's been moved by Bill, seconded by Larry. Pat, do you have a further question?
Just, I'm not sure process time, is there, if, I understand Mr. Milson saying, well, I want to wait to see what happens with the LPAT tribunal, but I don't know if Cedric can ask this question. If that doesn't go through and he still needs to do the survey to meet the timelines for this one, could there end up being a situation where he would have to do two, which is truly unreasonable?
I don't foresee
It's already
the
there.
need for two, Mr. Chairman. The information would still be new information. It would, as Mr. Melson has said, he's not moving his buildings. We're just identifying where the buildings are with respect to the lot lines on Stu Black Road and the north and south lot line as they are close to the buildings. I understand that they're 1,500 feet away from this particular application, but it's the property in the whole that needs to be compliant.
I understand what you're saying. I think my concern was if the LPAT decision is there, do they have like a timeline where they say we will have a decision by 3 months or whatever, or could it carry on long term?
Like anything else, LPAT is a bit backed up. Thank you to the state of emergency. They are working as quickly as they can, but the information that LPAT considers, they would either approve the appeal and then everything is lost, or they would deny the appeal and Mr. Milson gets to continue on fulfilling the conditions. I do not believe that the tribunal would be changing the conditions unless something was very odd, but they usually leave the conditions as the municipality has put forward. So
Okay.
whatever we've requested, I would imagine would be imposed on an appeal that Mr. Milson gets to keep his provisional consent.
So then my last question is, I know that the motion is to keep that in, but if that were removed, the onus would still be on Mr. Milson to get that report at the time of sale of the retained property if anything was out of whack?
It would be on Mr. Milson's shoulders to obtain that for any prospective purchaser, should the prospective purchaser wish it. Sometimes they don't wish it and they buy land without survey and then they find out, oh, well, this wasn't right to begin with. We should have. Well, hindsight's 20/20. But again, the township cannot create a lot that does not comply with the zoning bylaw. And if by chance the house or any other building does not meet the required setbacks today, and we do not do the required variance or zoning amendment, then we are creating a lot, a resultant lot, that does not comply with the bylaw. We can't do that.
Okay, if I may, one last question, just so it's clear in my head. If Mr. Wilson did not come forward with this request for the lot line adjustment, and if he went to sell his house and something was not meeting the setbacks, he would at that point simply be required to have a minor variance, or would he still have to do a real property survey?
If he sold his lot tomorrow, forgetting both the applications before the committee, he says, I'm not going to do either one, I'm going to let them both go, I'm going to sell the lot tomorrow. And somebody comes along and says, I'm going to buy it as is, that's fine, that's their prerogative. Because we have not created a lot that does not comply with the bylaw.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
Bill, further question?
Well, I have a couple of points. Yeah. First of all, Sandra was saying that if this, real survey was done for the lot that's now being challenged, it could be used for the lot consent that we're doing today. I'm sure the reverse must also be true. If the study was done for the lot we're doing today and the other lot is approved, then it could be used for that lot. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have some reason to believe that there is a variance needed on the existing buildings? Does Mr. Milson have a survey of where his buildings and shop are that exist now that shows that they are in compliance with our bylaws? Or do we have some suspicion that they're not in compliance?
I have not seen a survey, a plot plan survey or a surveyor's real property report. I have seen air photos, and I've been out to the property. I do question the location of one of the outbuildings with respect to setbacks, and I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. And if I am wrong, then again, condition number 3 is not required. But if I'm not wrong, then condition number 3 is required. And the only way to prove it is with the surveyor's real property report.
Unless one already exists for the property that Mr. Milson's living on now.
Well, if one already exists, then he doesn't have to go out and hire it. Hire it done. But I need the information.
So the reason I'm leaving it in there to Pat's question is that this is advice from staff who know a lot more about this than we do. And that's my primary reason for leaving it in. But I mean, if Mr. Milson has some proof, if he already has an existing survey of his current property that proves that they're all within compliance, then I would waive it. But otherwise, I think we need to leave it in.
Larry?
Just so that I understand, this transaction or conveyance is independent from the other application that he's made, correct? So it has no relevance. It has no relevance to that.
Correct.
So we have to pass it as we see it and then put it forward as requested by staff to make it legal. Correct. Thank you. Mr.
Anything
Chair?
further from committee members? Been moved, seconded for approval with the conditions as prepared by staff. Could I have your vote on that, please? All those in favor, yay. Motion carried. By the mover and seconder, we will need reasons for your approval. Am I correct, Sandra?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So I have a couple, first of all the government agencies were on board. There were no issues with anyone. And we had no members of the public in opposition. So those are the reasons I moved it forward.
Anything that you would like to add, Larry?
Oh, just that it meets the official plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra, did you get those documented?
Yes, I did, thank you.
Okay, that provides Mr. Milson with provisional consent. Obviously, Mr. Wilson is experienced and knows that he will be receiving a notice of decision in the mail or email, the way things are now, and that there will be a time allotment to meet those conditions. Moving on, that is our only application for today. Moving on to other business, is there any from staff or committee members?
I have none, thank you.
Seeing none, the next would be a motion for adjournment. Moved by Mark. Seconded by Pat. All those in favor with a show of hands? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned at 2:43, I believe, Sandra.
Correct?
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good day.